And welcome to the inaugural first episode of the Cripple Connection Podcast. My name is Cody Lachney. I'm joined by my co-host, my partner in crime, Jeffrey Redmond. What's up, Jeffrey?
Hey, Cody. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. We've been talking about doing this for a while. So for those that are finding this for the first time, crippled people play video games all the time because it's one of the few things that we can do and do well on a frequent basis. So who better to talk about video games than us? And we'll flavor it a little bit with some perspective from disabled people like ourselves, but mainly this is just going to be us talking about video games, the industry, just a lot of different topics surrounding video games and what interests us at the time.
Yep.
So, today we're going to be talking a little bit of Final Fantasy VII. And all of this is flavored around a conversation Jeffrey and I had previously. And we said to ourselves, damn, this could actually be a pretty good podcast if we sat down and recorded it. So that's what we're doing. So, Jeffrey, we're on the eve of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Indeed.
Everyone's excited.
Yep.
I can tell by your face you're excited. I'm very excited as well.
Definitely.
How are you feeling right now with a little under, 8 hours? It drops at midnight. So,
yeah.
What are your thoughts and feelings right now as we inch closer to Final Fantasy VII?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. At first, I had my reservations, and part of me still does. But I tell you, when I pre-downloaded it today, because you could actually download it and pre-install it, so you could play it first thing tomorrow. And I got all the extra stuff. I got the deluxe edition because that's how I roll. And and there's just I don't know. But as far as the game goes, there's a lot in terms of just how this game is. It's so different from the original back from 1997, and because it's not turn-based anymore, at least not in the traditional sense.
Yeah, it kind of is, and I think that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have this discussion because. I know specifically for myself growing up, depending on what kind of disability you have, certain games are just easier to play than others.
Right.
And Final Fantasy, for a lot of disabled people, is one of those games because it's turn-based.
Yeah, see, that's me too. Yeah, exactly.
So,
it's just an easier thing for us to physically be able to do.
Right. So. But I was able to play the demo, and I played them both ways, and I played them effectively.
Right.
So, I mean, I kind of love that they are doing it that way.
I agree.
It is a throwback to the original, and a lot of people really do love turn-based RPGs, and they want to be able to experience this game in a manner similar to how they originally did it. Yep. But in today's video game culture, I mean, we live in the age of the shooter and the battle royale.
Right.
You have to have a fast-paced action adventure kind of game in order for it to have broad appeal. I love their decision to do this. I felt the battle system was intuitive. When you're playing Cloud, it feels like a hack and slash. And when you play Barret, it feels like a shooter. And from everything that I have seen from Tifa, it's like a beat-em-up fighter when you're playing with her. And it does feel like they got a good mix of different styles when you move from character to character.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of like. It doesn't feel turn-based, but it very much is, in the sense that your regular attacks, unless you're talking about just against regular soldiers, but your regular hack and slash attacks aren't going to do crap. They're basically meant to build up your ATB meter, which then you can turn around and spend on, various moves or magic. But if you're going to play this game like a hack and slash, you are going to die. And I think the Scorpion boss at the end of the demo pretty much proves that. If
Yeah.
you go in there trying just to swing your sword or whatever, you're not going to make it through, like, at all.
No, yeah, and that you know that kind of one that brings me to kind of our next topic of discussion is like it, and this is just my opinion, but from playing the demo, it still feels like Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, very much so.
And Final Fantasy in general, and that the bosses are hard as fuck, and they will kick your ass, and you have to have a real strategy in order to know how to go forward. And I think upon playing the game, the demo a few times, it becomes easier every playthrough.
It does.
Yeah, because you're aware of the proper strategy required to beat the boss. And that's kind of what I wanted to segue into. What did you come away from this demo feeling like? What were your thoughts and your overall opinion on the demo? Because I can say for myself, and I've Final Fantasy VII, and I know you and I have this in common. It wasn't my jump off point with Final Fantasy. So I started with Final Fantasy VIII. I actually played 7 before. I just never got into it. It just didn't catch my attention at the time. But I know that Final Fantasy VII is beloved. And as someone who doesn't love 7 in a way that most people do, man, when I played it the first time, I had goosebumps, man. Looking around, seeing Midgar and the Mako reactor and the Buster Sword with the materia in the Buster Sword.
Yeah, that kind of attention to detail is just, as far as, especially the materia in the weapon, and it's probably going to show up like in maybe some of your armor too, because you can put materia into armor as well. So I don't know if that's physically going to show up, but the fact that it even shows up in your weapon at all, I mean, that's a physical detail that even if I had made the game, I probably would have overlooked. So the fact that they really, thought this out was a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought that I would see a day where I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Like
essentially,
how incredible that movie looked.
Yeah,
is how incredible this game looks.
Pretty much, yeah. And I was going to bring that up, and you hit the nail on the head. I think we finally gotten to the point where a CGI movie can now actually be the game itself, which
these consoles,
is amazing.
They're able to replicate that kind of power. Going through the game, I love the voice actors even. We're kind of doing a Final Fantasy X thing where, 10 was the first time Final Fantasy had voice actors. But now it's another role where you're taking a beloved game and now you're adding voices on top of that. And you pointed out to me in our earlier conversation that the voices are different than the voices that have traditionally done these characters in titles like Kingdom Hearts and Dissidia and all these other. So they're really trying to provide a brand new, unique experience for people that are new to Final Fantasy VII. What did you think about the actors and their performances?
Oh, I thought they did. I thought they did great. I mean, especially the fact that a lot of these people that are doing these voices are unknown. They're not people that we've seen a million times, like you've said. I recognize one of the actors, the guy that plays Wedge, or not Wedge. Yeah,
Biggs.
Yeah. Biggs and Wedge both I know, because Wedge is from Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And then Biggs I know as a character from Overwatch. But other than that, I mean, like all these other characters, I don't know, or all these other voice actors, I don't know.
Who did he play in Overwatch?
He was Winston, the Big 8 thing.
Oh, okay, cool.
But I mean, other than that, like I don't know these people, and I thought they did a great job with the material they were given.
And then I'm bad with names. What's the female's name that's thirsty as fuck?
Jessie.
Jessie. Yeah, she's wanting Cloud's dick the entire time.
I know, it's ridiculous.
I loved it. I'm into it. But you know, I kind of feel like this does, and granted, so you started to watch some reviews. I
did.
haven't. I
Okay.
haven't. But I am kind of wondering if this does have the potential to be in 2020 what Final Fantasy VII was in 1997, and is it possible that this could successfully reintroduce Final Fantasy to a brand new generation of people, of gamers?
Right.
And if they're able to pull this off, it's a very real possibility that it could have the same kind of cultural impact.
Right. And it's someone like us who doesn't, hold Final Fantasy VII on the highest pedestal. If it can make me care more about Final Fantasy VII as a whole, then I think it will succeed. Because, I mean, ultimately, and I know this is going to be blasphemous for a lot of people, but Final Fantasy VII is on my bottom 3 RPGs of all time. Like, that's how much I think it's overrated. So if it can pull me in, I think it can pull just about anybody in, because I think I'm one of its harshest critics.
Yeah, so, I have a lot of respect for Final Fantasy VII and
I
what
do.
it did.
Just
because nothing that came after Final Fantasy VII would have happened without the monumental success of 7, and it did lay the groundwork. Yeah, and for me, it's just I did end up playing it retroactively. I played it, I think when I was at 13 or 14. Mm-hmm. I did a run through of it, and I enjoyed it. But another thing for myself going into this is, since it's been a while, and I don't hold it so near and dear to my heart, I'm even more excited because I'm going into this. And I don't remember all the popular beats of the story. I'm not going to be able to remember at every turning point, oh, well, that was in the original, or oh, that scene was different, or they took a creative liberty there and did something different. I'm not really going to have a lot of those moments. And, younger people are going to kind of be the same way if they never had an experience with it before. And in a lot of ways, I feel that's beneficial, because they're having a fresh experience with it instead of judging it next to this, beloved game that they've held near and dear to their hearts, since their childhood.
Right.
So,
and that's the thing. I mean, that's something that we've pretty much known since the outset of this game, is that they have taken some creative liberties with this story. So it's not going to be a beat for beat thing. You're not going to be able to just, match up scene by scene. I've heard that all the important scenes are in there, but they may not happen in the order or in the way that you expect. Right. So, I mean, but like you said, that's a good thing, I think. I think there's a lot of things from the original that could be cleaned up or expanded upon, and I think that's really what they're trying to do here. So I respect them for what they're trying to do. Whether they'll actually succeed or not is yet to be seen, but I'm excited either way. So
Square Enix has been releasing these videos on their YouTube channel about the making of process, and talking with a lot of the main people. And again, credit to Square for maintaining all these people for so long. But really, the development team, for the most part, is made up of people that crafted the original one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, if you're going to have faith in anyone to try and reproduce and then update this experience for a new generation, it's those guys. But I've been watching it, and the love and the attention to detail is obvious that they're putting into it. But also, like I said, they are updating it for a new generation of fans to experience. And in our original conversation, we were talking about what are the next installments gonna be like?
Right.
You know, and I remember, saying to you back when Final Fantasy originally dropped, it came in disc
Right.
1, disc 2, disc 3,
Right.
and now we're doing the same thing.
Pretty much,
Essentially,
yeah.
Final Fantasy VII Midgar is disc 1, and this is going to be the start of the story. And I believe we're both assuming that all of the next installments are probably going to be on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah, I don't see how they could fit it any other way. That it's just not.
Yeah.
It's not physically possible unless they've had all of these parts in the background and they've been working on it and just haven't told us. But I doubt that.
And I can also foresee a scenario where at the end of every console cycle, there's a game that is put on the previous console and the new console. And in my mind, Final Fantasy VII is one of those it's one of those games that's probably going to be a staple and a selling point for both this console and the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox and what have you. But I kind of like that it's a throwback, really, to how things were done in the past. And, even though you're not going to have the entire experience or the entire game with this one download, essentially.
Right.
It is being broken up similarly to how games in the past were. And it's like time is a flat circle. History is kind of repeating itself here.
Yeah, exactly.
With this one. But I'm into that, though. I'm happy that they decided to expand upon Midgar, for one, and let us feel and be in that city, experience the citizens and the people in the world and how they relate to the environment around them. I love it. I love whenever Final Fantasy does a metropolis well.
Yeah, me too. And that's the thing. And I think that's a big point for a lot of people is that this isn't your typical fantasy setting, right? I mean, Midgar is pretty much steampunk, but instead of steam, you've got Mako, or Mako. Is how they say it now. But
smartphones.
And smartphones, and I mean, it was ahead of its time because I know immediately not with 8 because 8 had its own sci-fi thing going on, but I know with 9 they returned right back to like the medieval fantasy stuff, which is fine.
True fantasy.
But 7, I think, at the very least, took some pretty cool risks. I've always kind of seen it as a nature versus technology kind of story, because Shinra is all about mechanics and stuff, and then the thing with Aerith and the whole Centra. I mean, and the planet saving people. I mean, it's essentially like the Wiccans versus the industrialists, essentially.
And essentially, I mean, you have Avalanche, and they're inevitably labeled as these eco-terrorists. They're doing these terrible things, but they're trying to, counteract what Shinra is doing to the planet, doing to the environment. So I do love how, and obviously the class warfare thing is going to be very obvious too in the lower section of Midgar and the upper section. And, I think one of the great things about a game, about anything really, a movie, a show, and it's when art imitates life.
Right.
And I feel that there was so much of that in the original game, which to its credit really was ahead of its time on a lot of these things and dealing with a lot of these issues. I mean, you can compare and contrast it to global warming and all these other different things that people care so deeply about, and now you have these people that are also kind of doing something in the same vein. I'm interested to see how far they decide to go on all these different issues compared to how the original Final Fantasy VII decided to do it.
And that's the thing. I mean, just this installment alone, just so you know, it's about 85.5 gigs. Like it's huge. And the
Hefty.
and the physical release is on 2 Blu-ray discs. Like
Right.
that just tells you how big this is going to be. And the fact, I mean, Midgar in the original game was only like a 5 to 7 hour part of a 45-hour game, you know?
Yeah.
So the fact that they're willing to make a 35, 40 hour experience just out of Midgar is extremely impressive. Um, and that's kind of the thing. I think we're going to see more of what you were talking about. We're going to see, we're actually really going to get to see like the devastation that this causes. The like Avalanche's actions of blowing up the Mako reactor. We get to see how it
Yeah.
affects people's lives. We get to see the slums in greater detail, things like that. And I'm really interested to see how that's going to go. But there's also a caveat to that, which is how do you stretch for that amount of time
Yeah.
without
Something.
filler? Is filler going to
Right.
happen? Is my question. And the other thing, partly due to, or my major other concern is, uh, Nomura is at the head of this, and I love
Yeah.
Nomura to
Tetsuya
death.
Nomura.
I love Tetsuya Nomura to death. I love Kingdom Hearts, but that's kind of the issue. Is is he gonna do something that's gonna be like way out there? Are they really gonna stay? Um, you know,
It reminds me of when there were rumors that he wanted to turn Final Fantasy 15 into a musical.
right?
Which,
Exactly.
oh my fuck, thank God that did not happen, dude. That would have been the most terrible thing ever. But no, I hear what you're saying. Nomura is eccentric, but like I
Right.
said, Kazushige Nojima and all these other people that that had a lot to do with the original are
Mhm.
also a part of this.
Yeah, and
So
that gives me hope. So,
yeah,
um,
a lot of the bigger names um, are a part of this. So I'm not too necessarily worried about
okay.
him derailing it, but I do understand what you're saying is that you're having to you know add some water to the mix to expand it
Exactly. Yeah.
and kind of open things up a little bit more. But I think if they do it well and the side quests are fun and the
Mhm.
side stories and the side missions are
Yep.
fun, I mean, in my mind, that's where you're going to expand upon the world and the city of Midgar as itself. And
Right.
hopefully your interactions with the NPCs inform how their modern everyday life is and how these things matter to them and the class structure and
Right.
what it does to them on a
Right.
daily basis. And I'm excited about the possibility of them expanding upon that.
I agree. Is there anything in? Just thought of a question. Is there anything in
Yeah.
particular? I know you said you don't remember like Final Fantasy VII beat for beat. I probably remember it better than you
Yeah,
do.
like I
But
remember the larger story events, like the bigger
right.
things that happen, but then there's like stuff in between that my mind just didn't hang on to. It does not compute.
Is there anything specific in terms of like the story or just a particular area that you are excited to see more than others? Like a
Yeah,
particular part of Midgar?
so the motorcycle chase,
Yeah.
I'm pretty amped for. Um, uh, seeing Cloud in a dress going to a brothel, that might be kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Uh,
Um, everything having to do with Shinra and delving into the past. And so
mhm.
this is another thing. I don't remember there being a lot of Sephiroth or even Sephiroth memories in the original. And correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, you know and remember better than me. But from all the promotional footage and the trailers and even flashbacks that Cloud has, they definitely want to make it a point to make you aware that Sephiroth is in this world. He is definitely a coming threat. The baddie of Final Fantasy VII, and one of the most famous villains in all the video games. So it's like, why wouldn't they? I understand that.
Well, and that's kind of the thing about Sephiroth, is that he didn't come until a little later into the game. Like, there was no mention of him in Midgar at all, but we already know from the trailers and other various materials that we're at least going to see something, whether it's random flashbacks from Cloud or whatever, is yet to be seen. But Sephiroth is going to be established much earlier than he was in the original, and hopefully they do, I won't say clean up his backstory, but they make it a little bit more clear. It was a little bit esoteric in the original one, just kind of like all over the place. So I'm really hoping that they really expand him as a character, because to me, a game or a movie or a book or whatever is only as good as its villain. I care more about the villain than I do the heroes. So, I'm really hoping that they do some stuff. They clearly have the time to do so. I mean, if they're really going to be expanding these parts the way that I think they are, they definitely have the time to do it. So, I'm excited to see what they do.
So I'm not too worried about going into spoiler territory.
Okay.
Since this is the eve of, when whoever watches this inaugural podcast or listens that we're doing right now, if they're interested in Final Fantasy VII, by the time they're listening to this, they're probably already played into it some.
Right.
Maybe they haven't gotten all the way through it, but this is in the final trailer, final release trailer, that tease at the end. I'm pretty sure they're teasing Zack with that, right?
Yeah,
showing the Buster Sword, and so again, sorry if that's a spoiler. Don't blame us, blame Square Enix.
Well,
if you have a problem with that.
I even put that on my Facebook. I was like, you're a week away from release, and you put out this trailer that shows a bunch of stuff we haven't seen yet. Like, why the hell would you do that, man?
Right.
I don't understand their marketing strategy with that. Maybe just to give us a little bit more, but to me, that even dove into spoiler territory, because that was stuff that nobody had even mentioned before or anything.
Well, so I do feel like it's for us. It's for people that have some experience with the original one, or know it and love it, or they know it enough like I do, and they know about Zack. And again, if you have no idea about any of these characters and the story, then you have no idea what that is or who Zack is. So it's not as much of a spoiler. Right. But for the people who do know about it, it's, hey, look at all we're pushing into this game and into this experience. And the fact that it is so large, like how you just said, it does kind of give me a little bit of relief that they're going to take their time, even though they're adding a bunch of new elements, that it's going to have enough time to be done well, or at least that's the hope.
And I think what they're going to do, I might be putting my foot in my mouth, and I may be completely wrong here, but there is a whole Final Fantasy VII expanded universe. We already talked about, Advent Children, but there's other things. There's the Crisis Core PSP game. There's all these things. So they literally could just be redoing the entire Final Fantasy VII timeline into one game, or splitting it up into parts that way. And I'm fine with that. I think expansion is good. So they're not just limited to the basics of the original game. They have all this other material to pull from, and I think if they pick and choose the right ones, it could be really beneficial. So we'll see.
So, and again, I know this is a different kind of question for you. We had this conversation. You've already started to watch some of the reviews and listen to some
Definitely.
of what people like IGN and
Yep.
GameSpot are saying about Final Fantasy VII. But just based on what you played, and I mean, look, fuck it, whatever you've heard, what do you have any reservations going forward, or is there anything that worries you or think might kind of stifle the excitement that everyone's seeming to experience? Because, by the way, this is a huge drop. And I also feel like it's kind of incumbent upon us to say, dude, we're in the middle of all this coronavirus bullshit.
Yeah.
Everyone's stuck at home. I mean, I've seen a bunch of commercials. I've seen ads online, ads on video. I mean, this is a huge drop at a huge time. And as fucked up as this is to say, the coronavirus could not have come at a better time for Square. I mean, everyone's at home.
I mean,
really.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked, all over the internet what people are saying, and I've even talked to some people, and it's like, I've never played so many video games in my life, is what most people are saying, because they've got nothing better to do.
Right.
So, I mean, if any particular time for a big game, for an exclusive game of Sony to come out, now is the time to do it, because people are actually going to sit down and take the time to do it, because for better or worse, they've got nothing better to do.
Yeah.
So
and it is on Xbox as well, right? This is not on Xbox?
No, it is a PlayStation exclusive.
Hang on one sec.
As far as I know.
I might need to fact check that because
you may need to, because last I checked.
Let me do a real. But anyway, what are your reservations while I'm looking this up? Is there anything that is kind of giving you pause going into this?
Just that. Let's see. Well, I already mentioned the story. I don't know if Nomura is gonna switch anything anyhow, but I don't know. He's got this reputation for throwing stuff out of left field, so we'll see if any of that holds true. I hope not.
So you are right. It is exclusive, but there are rumors that it could come to Microsoft at a later time. But no, you are correct, man. I mean, this is a huge win for Sony PlayStation fans to have this as an original. But no, continue with what you were saying.
The side quests, I'm afraid some of them might be like fetch quests, like typical like MMORPG stuff, like go kill this amount of animals and then return to me and I'll give you this. And I don't know if that's true or not, but
so basically it could become a little bit formulaic at times.
Yeah. I hate to say it, but it probably will at some points.
And that kind of goes back to what you were saying about, having to stretch out a world that didn't have as many ins and outs in the original one.
Yeah, I've heard tales of dungeons being a little too long. What would probably take 45 minutes in the original is now taking like 3 hours, which frightens me a little bit. The one consistent good thing I've heard is that the combat is really good. And the one thing we didn't get to do in the demo was like tinker with anybody's stats or the materia or anything. So I think once people like are able to build their own character the way that they want, I think that the combat will be a lot more fluid too. That was my original problem with the demo, was that you really couldn't do anything, and you had this kind of like preset. And the Scorpion boss kicked my ass in the beginning about twice until I finally got the hang of it. So I think once
I did one playthrough where I tried to do it with Barrett as much as I could, and Cloud would just keep dying on his own.
Right.
Like I kept on having to use items to heal him, and that's actually one of my reservations, is that when you're not controlling, who you're not controlling,
Right.
And I didn't have a bunch of problems with it in the demo, but the AI and how your characters act, basically when you're not controlling them all the time,
Right.
is kind
And
of one of the things.
and I already know this from the demo. I know this for a fact, is that the character you're not controlling doesn't fill their ATB gauge as quickly as if you were
Right.
controlling them yourself. So it's like either you're constantly going to have to be switching between characters to take advantage of that, or you're going to have to know the enemy's weakness up front and then use the specific character necessary to exploit that. You know, um, there's all these different kinds of trade-offs, but then again, I think that adds a little bit to the strategic thing, because I think if your
Right.
AI partners did too much, then you could just solo it as a single character. And I think that's something they wanted, to get away from. They want you to switch. They want you to, learn the fighting styles and the ins and outs of every character.
Right.
So, but yeah, I definitely do see your concern with that, because
And
the
it's
AI,
something that go ahead.
the AI pathing, I'll speak to the pathing, is not that great, because there are several points where a character could have clearly gotten out of the way, but they rush in,
Right,
without
right, right.
without reservation, making you have to heal them. So I don't know if that's going to be a little tighter in the game's full release, but at least in the demo, they acted kind of brain dead. So we'll see what comes of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and like I said, I experienced a little bit of that in the demo.
Mm.
For the most part, it was okay.
Right.
And like I said, upon subsequent playthroughs, the boss became easy once you know how
Yep.
to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's one of the parts that I'm excited about, because a real Final Fantasy, it takes effort to understand how to be good at the game.
I agree.
So, and the material system is going to be incredibly important and new in its own ways, because materia in this game, it didn't have the benefit of being on the PlayStation 4 before, and
Right.
having an active battle system where you can
Mm-hmm.
actually do inputs and things like that. So
Right.
a lot of things are going to be new, but the fact that they have made the strategic aspect of it
Mhm.
really important
I mean,
is
even more
that's
so
yeah. I mean
here.
that's Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean that's
And
what they were.
that's what I'm kind of excited for, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of like random battles here, which means you're not just going to be able to power level and then go through everything, with one hit like you could in a
Right.
turn-based game. This
Grinding
is going to be
essentially.
more strategic. This is going to
Yeah.
be, okay, I really need to know the ins and outs, otherwise I'm not going to survive. So actually that's probably the thing I'm most important about, is or most happy about, is how important strategy is actually going to play versus a regular RPG where you can just power level and get through everything.
Right.
So this will be
So
interesting.
you already asked me this. I'll turn the question over to you.
Okay.
What from Midgar in the original one are you most excited to replay through in this one?
The lab at the very end, the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Shinra
Yeah. Yeah.
building. I want to see Genova. I want to see Red 13. Red
Yes.
13 is my favorite character in Final Fantasy VII, so
All
I'm
right.
very happy to see him. We already know from previous interviews that he's not going to be playable, because we're going to get him so late in the game, but he will be a guest character in your party, so we'll at least get to see how he functions. So that'll be neat. But yeah, I want to see the Shinra building, and I want to see President Shinra die. Yeah, I want to see.
Yeah.
I want to see how that happens. I think they could play that up a lot better than they did in the original. In the original, you just go up there and Sephiroth's sword is sticking out of his back. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Sephiroth at that point in the game hadn't even really been fleshed out. I think you hear his name like once from President Shinra beforehand. Um, but you're like, what the hell's going on? So maybe they can make that scene a little bit more, I don't know, just more flashy, more movie-like, more cinematic. So
I'm sure it will. And again, like I said, in all the promotional footage and the trailers and even in the demo, I mean, you're made aware of Sephiroth, or that he is this looming specter in the world. So yeah, I would imagine that you have to have way more violence and flash and production value when that finally does happen. Another thing that I'm excited about to see how they deal with is, especially in the original one, you can kind of have your own choice of love interest.
yes,
It's either Cloud and Tifa or Cloud and Aerith. And, now that we're going to be able to see more of Aerith as well,
right.
and the more in-depth conversations with Tifa, I do like that aspect of it as well. I'm excited for that and excited to see how much choice they let the player have.
Right.
Because at a certain point, you can choose who you end up going on a date with. At a certain point, you can even choose Barrett in the original one if you wanted to. So
and that's the one thing I can answer on, is that a lot of the reviewers are basically saying that this is a waifu simulator. So you're gonna get you're apparently gonna get plenty of opportunity to make that choice even this early on. So but I'm really interested in the character interactions. I still don't know who I would pick overall, but I am curious to see how much they can really flesh these characters out from these side interactions, and how much more we're actually going to learn about them. So yeah, it'll be really interesting.
For sure, man. So we're going on about 45 minutes here.
Right.
Let's get some closing thoughts on I mean, again, we only have until it's 4:46 as of recording this Eastern time on the 9th. What are your, before you, again, if you're watching this or listening to this later on, we have not played it. We've just played the demo. It hasn't released yet. What are your final final thoughts and feelings going into this? Are you excited? What's going to be your process? Are you going to wake up early and just play through this whole thing and just binge it for hours and hours? What's Jeffrey feeling, and what's going to be your regimen as you play this?
I probably won't actually get my hands on this until about 12 o'clock in the afternoon of tomorrow.
Okay.
Even though I have it pre-installed, I won't be able to really play until then. But I have already decided point blank that I'm going to platinum trophy this game. I don't know if that's going to be a good or bad thing, but that's my goal I've set for myself. I'm really excited, but I'm also cautiously optimistic. I'm not going to shy away from things that I don't like. When I turn around and probably do a review on this, I want to be as honest and thorough as I can be, but I've realized that the only way to do that is to 100% the game, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So, what about you? How you feeling?
Yeah, man. So I'm also probably not going to be able to start it until sometime in the afternoon. So I'm in a similar kind of scenario. Just have a few things I gotta get done tomorrow, but I know. I'll say this: you and I are both writers. We love story, and for me, growing up, falling in love with story and characters, that in and of itself, Final Fantasy as a franchise was so instrumental to me. It helped me to fall in love with storytelling, and and even more so storytelling in video games. which either
Yep.
you love or you hate. Normally if you're going to play a game, you might want to play a shooter and just zone out with your friends. And,
Right.
if you want a story, you'll watch a show or a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel video games offer such a unique storytelling experience.
Yeah,
And
they really
Final
do.
Fantasy was kind of the originator of that.
Yeah.
So I would be lying if I told you that, I was only mildly excited or, oh, yeah, Final Fantasy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, I really do hope that this can, and obviously we have great titles like The Last of Us and God of War
Right.
who tell incredible stories. But,
Mm-hmm.
I was very kind of disappointed with 15 and how Final Fantasy has portrayed itself the past,
Recently, yeah.
and all of the recent numbered installments. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's
kind
really
of,
nuts.
man, there's like, I don't want to set myself up for disappointment, but I'm hoping that this is a return to glory for Final Fantasy and Square Enix as a whole.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I mean, whenever Final Fantasy dropped a numbered title, I mean, it was a moment
It was a
in,
big deal.
in video games for
Mm-hmm.
a number of different reasons. And I feel like Final Fantasy doesn't have that kind of hitting power anymore.
No, not anymore.
But as we've alluded to, man, with this coronavirus, everyone being at home, a huge advertising push, a new battle system that's much friendlier to a much larger audience. Yeah,
Right.
man, I'm hopeful. Like, I really am hopeful that this could end up being a very big deal. So
Yeah,
I'm excited to play it. I'm excited to get hands on with it, and I have high hopes. I'm just hoping that they're not crushed and destroyed.
Based on the demo and based on what I know, I don't think it's going to be a perfect experience, but I think it's a very solid one. And right now, I will take solid as far as their recent track record. So I'll take it. Like I said, I'll have to wait and form my final thoughts later. But right now, I'm
Sure.
pretty hyped. So we'll see.
Right. Yeah, me too, man. Me too, definitely. Yeah, we're on the eve of it. It's right close. We hope all of you enjoy your experience with Final Fantasy VII. This will go up on YouTube, so leave your opinions and comments down below. At some point, this is going to be an audio format. I don't know exactly where it'll be, but follow me on Twitter at CODYLAC, Cody Lack on Twitter. And I'll be sure and post updates where you can find all that. Jeffrey, we have a little bit of time left. I wanted to kind of transition a little bit from Final Fantasy VII to this new PS5 controller that's going around. And personally, I don't find it to be much of a big deal. It doesn't seem all that different to me when you actually look at the control. What are your thoughts and feelings on seeing the pictures of the new PlayStation 5 control?
Actually, like you said, I don't see much departure from the DualShock 4 that we already have. Obviously, the color scheme is a little bit different. White is going to be a more prominent color, which I don't know how people are going to feel about that.
But there's no way that they don't put out a black one too.
Right. I'm sure there will be others down the road.
And people have already photoshopped it in black.
Yeah.
And said, "Oh, look how much better this looks."
Right.
Right. So go ahead.
From what I understand, the controller has a microphone built into it. So you may not need a headset per se. I think they're still recommending that you use one, but I still think that's a cool addition for people that, don't have one. So that's kind of cool. I don't know if it actually has a headphone jack or not. I didn't look. I assume it does.
Yeah, I believe it does.
This one.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, I like it. Also like the fact that the PlayStation middle and the button in the middle of the controller is actually a PlayStation symbol now Instead of just the bubble with the symbol, it's an actual symbol, which I thought was really neat. I don't know. I like it. Like I said, not too much different from what we've already had, just a little bit of a redesign. Hopefully the touchpad isn't as annoying as it is on the DualShock 4. I don't know if it's just the way I hold a controller or what, but a lot of times I end up accidentally like brushing my finger up against the touch screen, and a lot of times that's a pause button or a map button or something, and it kind of screws up what I'm doing. So I don't know how intrusive that'll be, if that'll be worse or better. I know that the controller has haptic feedback, so it's going to be like a lot more accurate in terms of your the pressure you use for like the trigger buttons, for example. So that'll be interesting. Overall, I think it's a really cool, if somewhat safe design. Like I said, it's not that different. So
I just hope the share button and the start button or whatever it's called are better than how they are on the DualShock 4. I was never a fan of them. I don't like how they press. I don't necessarily like their location.
Yeah, their placement's really strange. Yeah, I agree.
But so I do think that's a little bit better from what I've seen, is that the buttons look like they're in a better place that isn't quite so wonky and weird. I'm looking at it right now, and they are a little bit lower on the control. And then there's just it's a black, white, and blue. I mean that's it. There's really no color on it. Like I said, the analogs are the same, the buttons are the same, the position of everything are the same. It's more rounded, and a lot of people are making fun too, saying that it's like PlayStation doing their best Xbox controller impersonation. If you look at the shape of it and how it looks kind of bulkier. I don't necessarily know if that's true, but it definitely is more rounded, and it looks like it's more hand-fitting than PlayStation controllers have been previously.
Okay, that makes sense. As long as I know this for sure, the two analog sticks are at the bottom, because I don't like the offset analog sticks, like the way that Microsoft does it. The left stick is up on top and the bottom stick is on the bottom right. It's really strange to me. I like having them together on the same plane. So as long as they keep that intact, I'm okay. I don't care whatever else they do.
Xbox fans swear by the controller. They say it's way better. Yeah, it's the best controller there is. And by the way, I really don't have too much of an opinion. I've used both of them.
Yeah, the only reason I say that is because it's easier for my disability. I don't have any issues with the Xbox controller as it stands. I just, for me personally, in the limited use of my hands, God, I can't talk today. It just makes it easier for the two joysticks to be close together.
And I've noticed a lot of other of my handicapped brethren have said the same thing, that the PlayStation controller is just much friendlier to them. However, shout out to Microsoft, man. They have now undergone this entire process of building controllers that are especially for disabled people.
Yes, they have.
Completely customizable. So credit to them for
definitely
keeping us the lowly cripples in mind. But that's about it, Jeffrey. I think we've recorded our first full episode.
Yeah, man. I think we're good.
Connection, man.
Definitely. All right, man.
So, do you have any way for people? Do you have a Twitter account?
I do not. I need to get one.
Yeah, we need to make you one of those.
Yeah, I'll get one.
Jeffrey will have a Twitter account, so be on the lookout for that. And I'll probably upload this to my channel first, but eventually the plan is for this to have its own channel, its own YouTube channel, its own audio, all that jazz. Cool. But my name is Cody Lachney. You can find me at Cody Lack. CODYLAC on Twitter. And this was the Cripple Connection. Thanks you for tuning in, everyone. Until next time.
Until next time.